dividing fractions. So follow along with me on your notes page and we will understand the steps to accurately dividing fractions. So we'll start with our 3 steps. We got step 1, step 2, and then step 3 on the outside. And the example we're going to work with here is going to be 2/3 divided by 1/4. So when we start, we can't work with these like they are. We're actually never going to really divide fractions. We're not going to have a number that goes inside and we divide by the outside. What you're used to when you divide whole numbers maybe, or even decimals when we get there. We're going to remember this. We're going to have this KCF. And sorry, that K is not great, but KCF. It's a keep, change, flip, and this is what we're going to remember, and this will get us into dividing fractions, and I think a bit of an easier way. So we're going to keep, step 1 is keep the first fraction, and that's the K right there. C is for change, so we're going to change I'm just going to put the signs, the multiplication sign, or the division sign, I'm sorry. We're going to change that to multiplication. And then finally, we're going to flip the second fraction. Flip the second, and I'll just put fraction right here. T-I-O-N. So this first step, really important. Keep the first fraction, change the division to multiplication, flip the second fraction. So here's the example. Here's what that looks like. 2/3 stays. That's my keep the first fraction. So I'll rewrite it just like this, 2/3. But now I need to change the division sign to multiplication. So instead of division, I'm going to have multiplication. I'll put a little arrow down there, but I change my division sign to multiplication. The third thing I'm going to do is flip the second fraction. When you flip it, you actually call it finding the reciprocal. Looks like this, reciprocal. Kind of a tricky word to say, but this means when you find the reciprocal, you flip the numerator and the denominator of a fraction. So instead of 1/4, it's going to look like 4/1. That's the reciprocal part of our fraction. So that's our first step. It's like our long first step. And so step 2, as we get past that part, we want to make sure we always remember this step right over here, this KCF, when we divide fractions. Step 2 is simply going to be to multiply the fraction or fractions. And I know I'm going over into step 3 a little bit there, but just in space right over there. Step 2, we are going to multiply the fraction. So as I do it in the example right over here, we'll move along. We have 2/3. I did all this work times 4/1. So when we do this, we multiply it, we're going to end up getting at the numerators at the top. Remember, we multiply fractions. We multiply the numerators, we get 8. And then 3 at the bottom gives me 8/3. Our last step, as a lot of you guys remember, is going to be to simplify, or, kind of going off the side, simplify, or, and I'll put this kind of in a star here, convert to mixed number. And I apologize for writing kind of close to the edge here, but mixed number, but space isn't real great. So there we go. We either simplify this or we convert to a mixed number. 8/3 we can turn into a mixed number. It's an improper fraction, so I've got more on top in the numerator than I have in the denominator. So I'll switch to another page, but basically I can bring 8 to the inside. The top number, the numerator, always gets inside. I can divide by 3. 3 goes into 8 twice. 3 times 2 is 6. And then I multiply, or I'm sorry, I subtract. I get 8 minus 2 right over there. I'm going to get 2. And this is when I do my whole circle at the top and bring it around. The circled number at the top is going to be my whole number. And then as I come around right over here, hit the numerator, which is right there, and then the denominator right over there. And the denominator should stay the same. It should still be the 3 that's right there. So 2 and 2/3 is going to be the final answer. So remember, keep the first fraction. If we go back to that very first step, you're going to keep the first fraction. Don't need to do anything to that one. That's that first step. Change the division sign to multiplication. You'd never really divide when you do fractions. Dividing fractions, you really just flip it and then multiply. And then it's that flip. It's the reciprocal right over here. This is our key term right over here. Reciprocal means flipping the numerator and the denominator out. And then you just multiply and then simplify. These are the steps you want to make sure you follow when you divide fractions.